They say the person you love most has the power to destroy you the deepest. And I never realized how true that was until I tasted another man's cologne on Willow's neck while she kissed me goodnight. I should have known the signs weren't just in my head. The way she flinched when I touched her, the sudden obsession with staying late for group studies, and how her phone always flipped face down the second I walked in. We were students, fighting for a future, cramming for board exams with shaking hands and dry eyes, but I was the only one still dreaming of a life together. The others just pretended. The night I came home from a 3-hour pharmacology seminar, I found her laughter echoing from Ethan's room down the hall, sweet and sickening like spoiled honey. Ethan, my roommate. My friend. The bastard who used to steal my notes now stole her moans too. I didn't barge in. I didn't cry. I stood there and memorized every second. The creak of the bed, the shadow under the door, her gasp when he whispered something filthy I knew she'd never said to me. I walked away in silence, the image burning a hole into my brain, and that's when something broke inside me. Not my heart, but my restraint. I played the fool for one more week, kissed her forehead, brought her snacks while she studied, and let her dig the grave with every lie she told. My rage grew patient. My pain sharpened into focus. I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to become her regret, her nightmare, her living consequence. She picked Ethan because he was fun, spontaneous, and shallow enough not to notice that his grades were failing. But me? I was done being the nice guy. I was going to ace the boards, expose their affair in front of the entire study group, and leave her in ruins just like she left my trust. Love didn't turn me into a villain. Betrayal did. They say betrayal makes you bitter, but for me it made me focused, obsessed even. I stopped studying for her and started studying for vengeance. Every note I took wasn't for the exam anymore. It was for my escape, my resurrection. I kept up the act perfectly, smiling when she walked into the room with Ethan's scent faintly clinging to her clothes, pretending not to notice how she laughed a little louder when Ethan was around, how she suddenly stopped needing my help with biochemistry, even though she'd been failing every quiz before. I fed her lies like she fed me hers. "I'm so proud of you," I told her one night after she bragged about getting the highest score in a mock test. I knew the truth. I'd seen her sneaking Ethan's notes, the ones I had written, the ones he pretended to work on while she stroked his ego, and likely more. I knew exactly what she was doing because I hacked into her student portal and saw the IP logs. She wasn't logging in from the library, but from Ethan's dorm. And that's when I decided to light the match under the tower of deceit they built. I started isolating Ethan academically. We were in the same lab group, same review class, and I made sure his assignments got lost, his reports got corrupted, and the answers I gave him were all subtly wrong. Nothing too obvious, just enough to make him fail. I let him think he was coasting, relying on the comfort Willow gave him at night and the academic crumbs I pretended to feed him by day. I made sure to drop misleading facts in casual conversation and watched him nod, smug and clueless, while Willow smiled beside him like a queen reigning over her throne of lies. But this wasn't a castle. It was a guillotine, and I was the one pulling the lever. My anger gave me clarity. I started collecting proof, screenshots, voice recordings, even photos. I watched them from afar as they strolled hand in hand behind the campus bookstore, thinking they were clever as if secrecy could shield them from karma. I recorded them kissing behind the medical building, caught on a hidden phone tucked into a hollowed-out anatomy textbook. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted them to feel the same humiliation, the same raw, skin-peeling betrayal that had devoured me from the inside. So I planned my strike. The week before the big mock board exam, our department was organizing a peer-led seminar, a massive event where all top students would present complex topics to juniors, professors, and even some external examiners. I volunteered to present on a high-level topic Ethan had claimed he was preparing. And then I submitted my outline 2 days before he did, using notes I accidentally shared with him weeks ago. He'd plagiarized it without even realizing, like the fool he was. When he saw the event flyer and my name beside the topic he'd claimed as his own, he panicked, confronted me in the hallway, sweating, barking nonsense like, "You stole that from me." I just smiled. "I gave it to you." He didn't get it. Yet. But the real show was just beginning. The night before the seminar, I dropped the final bomb. I sent an anonymous email to our academic coordinator with timestamped screenshots showing Ethan copying my material, coupled with a detailed timeline and IP logs. I didn't need to sign it. The evidence spoke louder than any accusation. Ethan was pulled into a disciplinary meeting right before the event. And Willow? She was furious, cornered me by the campus cafe, tears of rage in her eyes. "What did you do to him, George?" she hissed, as if I was the villain in her twisted love story. I looked her straight in the eye, heart pounding, but face calm. "What did you do to me, Willow?" Her face froze. There it was, the first crack in her perfect mask. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. Maybe I had, emotionally. She stammered something about love, about how things got complicated, about how she didn't mean for it to happen. Lies. I had heard better confessions from drugged patients in clinical rotations. I walked away from her mid-sentence and left her with nothing but the sound of her own guilt. But that wasn't the end. It was just the dissection. Because what came next was surgical. I joined a new study group, the top performers, the ones who were too focused to gossip and too sharp to fall for emotional manipulation. That's where I met Anna. Quiet, reserved, brilliant. She didn't wear perfume to leave a trail. She didn't fake smile when she didn't care. She was real in a world of plastic people. I didn't pursue her, not immediately. I was too broken for romance, too full of acid and ashes. But she noticed. She saw the way I clenched my fists when Willow and Ethan walked into the room. She never asked, never pried, just sat beside me in the library one evening and shared her notes without a word. That small gesture cracked something in me, something soft, something I thought was dead. I didn't fall in love with Anna overnight. I just started healing in her presence. Meanwhile, Willow and Ethan were unraveling. Ethan's reputation was in ruins, his name whispered with disdain, his future now hanging by a thread. He wasn't expelled, but he was suspended from all academic leadership positions. Professors stopped calling on him. Study groups dissolved around him. And Willow? She tried to protect him at first, stood by his side like a loyal dog, but even she couldn't deny the stink of failure. She started skipping study sessions, faking headaches, texting Ethan less. I watched it all unfold like the final act of a play I had written. One night I saw her in the library again, sitting alone, head buried in her hands. For a second I felt something close to pity, but then I remembered the sound of her laugh behind Ethan's door. The pity turned to satisfaction. Then came the final move. I compiled all my evidence, not just of the plagiarism, but of their affair. Screenshots of their secret chats, timestamps overlapping with her study nights, photos of them together when she told me she was at home with cramps. I wrote a piece, not just an expose, but a raw, brutal narrative from my perspective. I didn't name them, but everyone knew. I posted it anonymously on the campus forum, where thousands of students lurked during finals week. It went viral overnight. People talked, whispered, judged. And for once, I didn't care. I had been the victim, but I turned myself into the narrator. They didn't get to write my ending. I did. The next day, Willow walked past me in the hallway, her face pale, her eyes hollow. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I met her gaze. No smile, no anger, just silence. That hurt her more than anything I could have said. Anna and I started studying together every evening. No drama, no lies. Just pages, questions, corrections, and the quiet rhythm of mutual respect. She never asked for my story. I offered it anyway one evening as the sun dipped behind the horizon. I told her everything about Willow, Ethan, the betrayal, the revenge. She listened. No judgment, just a soft, sad smile. You didn't deserve that, she said. And in that moment, something inside me finally settled. Not healed, not forgiven, but quiet. We passed the boards with top marks. Ethan scraped by with a miracle. Willow barely made it. And me? I walked out of that campus not just with a degree, but with my dignity stapled back together, stronger than ever. They burned my trust, but I built a kingdom from the ashes. Love didn't save me. Revenge didn't fix me. But truth gave me my freedom. They say time heals everything, but that's a lie told by people who've never been betrayed by the person they'd die for. I wasn't healing. I was adapting, surviving with scars instead of stitches. Every moment of peace built on a foundation of suppressed rage and remembered humiliation. The campus had turned against them now, not because I asked it to, but because truth has a way of staining reputations that no lie can wash clean. Ethan couldn't walk into a classroom without someone whispering fraud behind his back, and Willow, she had become a ghost of herself, drifting through hallways with mascara smudged, fake confidence cracking like porcelain. But even with all that satisfaction burning quietly in my chest, I wasn't done. Not yet. They had reduced me to nothing but a joke, a backup plan, a safe bet abandoned when excitement came calling. They didn't just cheat. They conspired to destroy something sacred, something I believed in. And now I was going to repay the favor by making sure the world saw them for who they really were. Cowards dressed as lovers, parasites in a symbiotic delusion of happiness. My opportunity came during the clinical rotations. It was a critical stage for us, hands-on experience, watched by professionals, performance recorded and reported. Ethan and I were accidentally assigned the same hospital wing, and at first he avoided me like I was radioactive. But soon he started trying to talk again, acting like nothing ever happened, like the months of betrayal and the fire I lit under his life never existed. "Hey man, can you help me with this case summary?" he asked one morning, his voice weak, trembling, eyes darting like a dog, begging not to be kicked. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I saw fear instead of arrogance. He wasn't trying to fix anything. He was drowning and reaching for any hand he could grab, even the one he tried to cut off months ago. So I smiled and said, "Of course." And just like that, he walked willingly into the next trap. For the next 3 weeks, I fed him false information. Not dangerous, not illegal, just enough to make him look incompetent in front of supervisors. I altered patient files he asked me to help review. Nothing major, just tweaks in terminology and dosage notations that only someone paying attention would notice. He submitted them without question, and when he failed 2 patient review assessments, the attending physician asked me to assist Ethan directly. I agreed, of course. But behind the scenes, I sent anonymous concerns to the clinical board, flagging inconsistencies in his records. Every move he made, I made sure there was a witness. Every mistake he committed, I ensured it was documented. I was careful, methodical, and merciless. I wasn't destroying Ethan out of anger anymore. I was destroying him because he deserved to feel what it's like to watch your dreams slip through your fingers like ash. Meanwhile, Willow had begun spiraling. The academic board had quietly removed her from the honors list due to an anonymous tip, one that included all the evidence of her cheating using Ethan's stolen notes. I had sent it to the board's internal review team, packaged neatly with a timeline and a well-crafted argument. She tried to protest, claimed she was being targeted, but with her name already tainted by the campus forum scandal, no one believed her. Professors stopped calling on her. Group partners requested reassignments. Even her social circle began to dissolve as people realized being near her was like sitting beside a sinking ship with no lifeboats. One night, I saw her crying behind the administration building, completely alone. A part of me wanted to walk past her, pretend I didn't see anything, but something stronger pulled me toward her, the need to see her break. So I approached. Slow and deliberate. She looked up, startled, her face blotchy and red. "What do you want?" she snapped, voice shaking. I tilted my head. "Nothing. Just wondering how it feels to have everyone leave you when they find out who you really are." Her eyes flared with that same mix of guilt and fury she always hid behind her mascara. "You think you're better than me now?" she asked, standing up, trembling with self-righteousness. "I made a mistake, George. People cheat. People mess up. But you." She pointed at me, voice rising. "You're evil." I laughed. A genuine, deep laugh. "No, Willow. I just finally stopped being your doormat." She tried to slap me, but I caught her wrist midair and gently pushed it away. "Go ahead," I whispered. "Play the victim. But we both know who lit this fire." She broke down again, sobbing into her hands, and I turned my back on her like she had once turned hers on me. That was the last time she ever looked me in the eyes. And through it all, Anna remained my anchor. She wasn't affectionate in public, never tried to replace Willow, never acted like a reward for my pain. She was just present, steady, kind, smart. We studied together in silence that felt more comforting than 1,000 sweet words. I told her the whole story one night while we were watching old surgery footage, the only light in the room coming from her laptop. She didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. When I finished, she just said, "I'm glad you didn't let it ruin you." And that sentence, just that, meant more to me than all of Willow's fake apologies and Ethan's pathetic attempts at redemption. Anna wasn't a chapter in my revenge story. She was my epilogue. But even as I tried to move on, the past wouldn't stop knocking. Ethan's academic record was flagged for integrity review, and though he wasn't expelled, he was barred from participating in the final internship selection. His future specialty was gone. His dream, orthopedic surgery, slipped away, replaced by a generic placement he couldn't even pronounce without sounding bitter. Willow, on the other hand, tried to pull herself together, but it was too late. Rumors said her family found out, that they stopped paying her tuition for a semester, that she had to pick up part-time jobs just to stay in school. I never confirmed it. I didn't care. She had built her palace on my loyalty and torn it down with her betrayal. All I did was return the favor, brick by brick. It wasn't until our final presentation that everything came full circle. We had to stand before the entire faculty panel, peers included, and present our cumulative project. I had prepared with Anna, while Ethan and Willow were paired together again by chance, or karma. They stood there, broken reflections of who they used to be, stammering through a weak presentation that lacked coherence, confidence, and clarity. When they finished, the room clapped politely. When Anna and I stood up, the applause was thunderous. After the session, our professor approached us and said, "If this is how you work under pressure, I look forward to seeing you both in residency." I thanked him and glanced at Ethan, who sat silently beside Willow, fists clenched, jaw tight. That was the moment I knew I had won. Not just the revenge, not just the academic battle, but the war for my own soul. I hadn't become like them. I had risen above them. Later that evening, I walked past the student lounge and saw Willow staring out the window, a cup of cold coffee untouched in front of her. She looked like a ghost, present but no longer part of the world. She didn't see me, or maybe she pretended not to. Either way, I kept walking. Some stories don't need closure. Some wounds are meant to remain as reminders. And Ethan? He dropped out a few months later. Word spread that he couldn't handle the pressure anymore, couldn't handle the looks, the whispers, the future that no longer existed for him. I never spoke to him again. I didn't need to. The silence between us was louder than any confrontation could have been. As I sat beside Anna during the graduation ceremony, our hands brushing under the table, I looked out at the crowd and realized something profound. Revenge hadn't made me whole, but it had carved away the rot. It had burned the dead parts of me and left space for something new, something clean, something honest. Love didn't save me. Pain didn't kill me. But truth set me free, and I would never let myself be shackled by betrayal again. They thought my silence meant I had moved on, but silence is just the calm before the final storm, and I had one last hurricane left in me. Graduation was supposed to be the end of this nightmare, the moment when Ethan, Willow, and I finally went our separate ways, but fate had a wicked sense of humor. Just 2 weeks before the ceremony, I got a message from the national board. An email stating that our medical ethics evaluations had been flagged for review after anonymous claims of plagiarism and protocol violations surfaced. I knew I was clean, but something about the tone felt off, like someone was trying to drag me down one last time before I could rise completely. And I was right. That same day, I ran into one of the assistant professors I had befriended during rotations, and she gave me a heads up that Willow and Ethan had met with the board, whispering desperate lies about how I had sabotaged their work and manipulated hospital systems to make them look bad. They said you faked data entries, she told me, eyebrows drawn tight, said you tampered with their cases out of jealousy. I laughed hard because the audacity was almost admirable. After all the damage they'd done to themselves, they still thought painting me as the villain would save them. But this time, I wasn't going to play defense. I was going to scorch the earth. I compiled everything I had, screenshots of messages from Willow begging me to keep our relationship a secret even after we started dating because she wasn't ready to deal with people's questions, timestamps from group chats where Ethan admitted he borrowed previous years' case summaries without citing them, digital receipts of email conversations where I had warned Ethan about the very dosage errors he went on to submit, and even a shaky recording of a conversation I had with Willow in the hallway after their initial exposure where she said, "We only did it because you were too perfect, George. You made us feel like trash every time you walked in a room." I packaged it all in a drive, formatted it with a detailed report, and submitted it directly to the ethics committee, then copied the entire senior faculty and student disciplinary board. If they wanted war, I would give them fire so hot it'd melt the lies off their tongues. The fallout was biblical. Within 48 hours, both Ethan and Willow were called in for questioning, their final graduation certification placed on hold. Professors who had previously pitied them now looked at them with disgust. The committee called me in too, but instead of being accused, I was asked to clarify and verify the evidence. And every time I responded, I looked them directly in the eyes, calm, steady, and unapologetically composed. The next few days on campus were tense. I could feel the shift in the air, eyes watching me, whispers following me into the library, the cafeteria, even the exam hall. But this time, they weren't whispers of scandal. They were whispers of respect, of awe, of someone who had endured hell and come out sharpened, not shattered. Willow, on the other hand, looked like a shell wrapped in expensive perfume. Her hair was always messy now, makeup smeared, eyes vacant. Ethan stopped showing up entirely. Word was, he had fled home to escape the embarrassment. He was officially barred from applying for medical licensure that year, and rumors swirled that he had to repeat a year or worse, change programs. The board was still reviewing Willow's status, but everyone knew what the outcome would be. And I was awarded a special commendation for academic integrity and resilience during an ethically compromised peer environment. That's what they called it. Politely, I called it karma. Despite everything, I kept my head down. I still studied, I still trained, and most importantly, I still stayed close to Anna. She had become my constant, never asking for more than I could give, never treating me like a project or a tragedy. One night, after a particularly long practice session at the hospital, we ended up at her apartment, and for the first time, I let myself exhale without fear of what tomorrow might bring. She looked at me across her kitchen table and said, "You know, you could have gone dark, really dark, but you didn't. You stayed you." I shook my head. "No, I changed, a lot. I'm not the same man I was when Willow broke me." Anna leaned in, her eyes soft but firm. "Good, that man was too kind. This one, he survives." And that night, when she kissed me, not like a reward, but like a promise, I finally felt like I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was winning. But the universe wasn't done testing me. 2 days before graduation, Willow showed up at my apartment. I was alone. Anna had gone home for the weekend, and the knock came just after midnight. I opened the door, and there she was, soaked from the rain, shivering, mascara running, holding something in her hand, a framed photo of us from a year ago. She didn't say a word, just pushed it into my chest and whispered, "I ruined everything." I stood frozen, rage and pity fighting a war in my blood. "I'm not here to beg," she said quickly, wiping her face. "I just wanted to say it. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I let Ethan poison that. I wanted someone exciting, someone who made me feel alive, but you made me feel safe, and I wasn't ready for that." I looked at the photo, us on the beach during spring break, smiling, young, stupid. I stepped aside, letting her in for reasons I didn't understand. She sat on the edge of the couch like she didn't deserve to sit properly in the room. "You destroyed me," I said flatly, watching her try not to cry. "You lied. You used me. You tried to ruin my future when I didn't crumble the way you expected." She nodded. "I know." I waited, expecting another excuse, another manipulation. But instead, she pulled something else out of her bag. A letter. "This is from Ethan," she muttered. "He wanted you to know he's leaving the country. Said you broke him, and he wanted to hurt you one last time by dragging you down with us." I said no. I didn't take the letter. I didn't need to read another coward's goodbye. "Why tell me?" I asked. "Because for the first time," she said, voice shaking, I wanted to do something right. And then she left, without another word. The next morning, I burned both the letter and the photo. Closure didn't come from apologies, it came from choosing to never open those doors again. Graduation came quickly after that. I stood with Anna, our hands locked, our names called in succession. Applause echoed through the auditorium, but I wasn't listening. I was remembering. Remembering the boy who once waited hours outside Willow's apartment with flowers she never appreciated. Remembering the man who watched her walk out the door to Ethan's car while I held back tears in silence. Remembering the rage, the loneliness, the fire. And I remembered every single step I took out of that pit, alone, wounded, but never defeated. That evening, during the graduation after-party, people kept coming up to me, some with admiration, some with apology. Former classmates who had laughed behind my back now shook my hand like I was royalty. Professors clapped me on the shoulder, nodding with respect. But the only validation I needed stood quietly beside me, her fingers brushing mine, her smile gentle and proud. "You okay?" Anna asked as we stood near the balcony, the music pulsing behind us. "Yeah," I said, breathing in the night air. "For the first time in a long time, I really am." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I looked out over the city lights, thinking of everything I had lost and everything I had gained. Willow never showed up to the party. She was officially removed from the graduation list after the board ruled her final year academically compromised. Ethan's name was never mentioned again. And me? I walked across that stage with my name clear, my record clean, and my heart finally steady. Not because I won some revenge game, but because I never let them turn me into what they were. And that, more than anything, was the victory I had always wanted. You'd think after the graduation ceremony, everything would quiet down, that the pain would settle like dust on forgotten memories, that the ghosts would finally lose their grip on my life. But closure isn't a finish line you cross. It's a choice you make every single day not to look back at the fire that tried to consume you. For a while, things were good, peaceful even. I got into a solid residency program, the same hospital as Anna, and we moved into a modest apartment close to campus. Life was simple, clean, untainted. I spent my days with scalpels, sutures, and silent prayers, and my nights with the woman who made me feel like I was still worth loving after being shattered into pieces. But like all things that try too hard to be quiet, the past eventually came knocking. It was a month into our residency when the hospital's HR called me into a meeting. I walked in, expecting something routine. Instead, I found two board members, a compliance officer, and a file with my name on it. Thick, red-tagged, and marked urgent. They slid it across the table and asked me to explain why a certain medical error report bore my signature. My stomach turned. I hadn't signed anything. Not that. "It's a dosage sheet," one of them said, flipping to the page. "An incorrect chemotherapy dosage, lethal if administered." Thankfully, the attending caught it in time. I stared at the page. It was my name, my signature, but it wasn't my hand. Forged, sloppy, desperate. And in that moment, I knew exactly who had done it. Willow. She couldn't let go. After being barred from practicing, after being humiliated, she must have found one last way to lash out. I remembered how she looked the last time I saw her, broken, but still poisonous. I walked out of that room trembling with fury. I didn't care if I had to drag her name through fire a second time. I was done playing the dignified survivor. I called the compliance officer back, told him I suspected someone had forged my name, and requested a forensic handwriting analysis. Then I went home and told Anna everything. She didn't flinch. She didn't ask why it was happening again. She just held me and said, "We finished this. No more giving them pieces of your piece." Over the next week, things escalated fast. The analysis confirmed the signature was fake, and with that confirmation came a deeper investigation. Turns out, Willow had befriended one of the hospital interns, a bitter, lonely guy named Matt who had a weird obsession with her during college. She manipulated him into accessing files and slipping the forged sheet into the system, hoping it would trigger an investigation and tarnish my spotless record. It was pathetic. It was criminal. And this time it wasn't just academic. It was legal. Charges were filed. She was arrested, publicly, in front of a Starbucks, no less. The moment was caught on a tourist's phone and went viral in our city's social media circuit. Former med student arrested for attempted professional sabotage. I watched the clip only once, not for revenge, but for finality. She looked nothing like the girl I once loved, just a mess of smeared eyeliner, tangled hair, and delusion. Ethan's name resurfaced briefly during the investigation, but he was nowhere to be found. Rumors were he had fled to a third world country to do volunteer work and escape scrutiny. Cowardice disguised as penance. Fitting. After the case wrapped up, I was given a formal apology by the hospital. My record was declared unblemished and exemplary, and I was offered a fast-track opportunity to pursue surgical specialization. I accepted it, not out of pride, but because I had fought too hard for too long to let someone else's rot infect my future. Life shifted after that. The respect I got wasn't loud, but it was heavy. Nurses started calling me Doc George with a hint of pride. Patients smiled when I walked in, and Anna, God, Anna, she was my anchor through it all. On the day I officially accepted my surgical track, she showed up at the hospital with a tiny gift box. Inside was a silver pen, engraved with one word, survivor. I held it like a trophy. I held her like a lifeline. We made a promise that night, no matter what the future held, we would face it together. But the universe, twisted and relentless, had one last test for me, one that no revenge plan could prepare me for. 6 months into our new life, Anna fell sick. At first, it was minor fatigue, dizziness, shortness of breath. But then came the bleeding, the tests, the scans, the cold, sterile diagnosis acute myeloid leukemia. Aggressive, advanced. My world shattered, not like the first time when Willow broke my heart. This time, it was my soul. Watching Anna fight for every breath, every smile, every moment, it humbled me, made every petty grudge feel microscopic. But Anna wasn't like me. She didn't spiral into bitterness. Even hooked up to IVs, pale and weak, she was still the strongest person in the room. You beat them, she whispered once, eyes glassy. Now it's my turn to beat this. I poured everything into her care. Every skill, every ounce of knowledge I'd gained through fire and blood, and she fought harder than anyone I'd ever seen. There were nights I sat beside her hospital bed and just cried into my palms, not because I was angry anymore, but because for the first time in my life, I was afraid, truly afraid of losing something pure. But fate, maybe out of guilt, showed us mercy. After 2 bone marrow transplants and 6 grueling months of treatment, Anna went into remission. The day her oncologist confirmed the cancer was gone, I proposed. Right there in the hospital garden, under a cherry blossom tree she used to stare at during chemo. She laughed through her tears and said yes. We got married 3 months later. Small ceremony, just family. No drama, no ghosts. Years passed. I became a full-fledged surgeon. Anna opened a clinic for children in underserved communities. We built a life, not perfect, but ours. And one day, while scrolling online, I saw a familiar face in a viral video. Ethan. He was arrested in South America for illegal medical practices and exploiting local patients. The comment section was brutal. No sympathy. Just ridicule. I watched for 10 seconds and clicked away. Some endings don't need applause. Others don't even deserve attention. As for Willow, I heard she moved to another city after serving her sentence. Tried to re-enroll in school under a different name, but the scandal followed her like a shadow. Last I heard, she was working at a call center. Her medical dreams forever buried under the weight of her own lies. Sometimes I still sit on our balcony and stare at the skyline, thinking of the boy I used to be, the one who loved too blindly, forgave too quickly, and shattered too easily. He's gone now. In his place stands a man who walked through betrayal, through humiliation, through heartbreak and sickness and silence, and still kept walking. I never needed revenge to win. I just needed to outlive their darkness long enough to find my light. And in Anna's arms, in every heartbeat that echoes against hers at night, I know I did.